Hello everyone, this is Naveen here. I hope everyone is doing good. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can launch a Linux VM across all three major cloud providers, AWS, Azure and GCP. Okay. The whole objective of this video is just to show you like how you can launch a test VM for your practice and play around it. Okay. So we know like all three cloud providers have their own free tier offerings. So before we get into like provisioning of VMs, we'll quickly go through that. Okay. So how each cloud and what they're offering basically. So to start with, so first one is AWS. So you get different set of service which would be like free for 12 months, and there are few service which is always free. Okay. So if you are new, so you can just go through this link. So I'll put all these links in the description, and you can come here and see like what service you get for always free and what you get for the 12 months free period. So for this lab, right, so we are going to use EC2 instance, and yeah, you will be having a some portion of storage usage along with that. Okay, this is going to be common across all three clouds. So AWS, you get this where you once you get your account created with the AWS portal, you will get a 12 month free offers for this set of service, which includes all these things. Okay. Similarly, like for Azure, you get free credits which can be utilized within 30 days, and there are again like few set of service which you get for 12 months. Okay. And again, I will leave this for you to explore it. And similarly, like with GCP also, you have credits which will be given to your account, and the duration would be like 90 days for GCP. Okay. Okay, so now let's get started with the demo. Okay, first I'm going to show it for AWS, then we'll move on to Azure, and at last we'll see for GCP. Okay, this is the order we're going to go, and this is the home page. Okay, so as soon as you do the initial setup, everything, you'll be landing on this page, and make sure like you set the location because whichever region is closer for you, just select that location. I'll go with Hyderabad, which is pretty near to my base location, so I'll go with Hyderabad in this case. And so in AWS, to launch a VM, there is a service called EC2. Okay, so you if you want to explore what services are there, so you could go and see this all services page. Okay, this has huge set of list. For this demo, let's go and search like EC2, which will take us here. This is how you will get a screen. Okay, now let's go and do a launch instance. Okay, so here I'm going to put my name. Okay, I'll just say Linux test VM, and this is just a name. Okay, and then you can come here and select what kind of operating system you're going to install in your VM. Okay, so I'm going to go with Ubuntu. Okay, so we'll follow this common across all three clouds. So we'll go with Ubuntu OS, and I will leave this as a default. So since there are few set of configurations which would be eligible for free tier, so just make sure like if it is for your testing purpose, you don't change it. Just go with the image which is eligible for free tier. Okay, I'll just select with this and let's proceed. And this is what you have seen just in the above screen. Okay, what type of instance, and we'll go with the T3 micro. Okay, then let's go on. For a Linux machine or like for Windows also in AWS, like we usually create this key pair. Okay, using this in case of Windows, using this key pair, you will be able to decrypt and get your administrator password. So for Linux, we are going to use it while making connection, which we will see. So I'll go and create a new key pair. Okay, I'll say test VM. So this name you can give any name. Okay, let's go with the PEM file, and I'll do a create key pair. So if you see, automatically a file got downloaded. So we'll use that when we are going to take a SSH connection into our Linux VM. And rest all I'll leave it default. I don't want to get into all these details, maybe security groups and all. I will leave it to you for exploring it. Okay, and storage I'll go with the default, and let's launch it. Okay, so let's go to the instance. So you can just ignore this one. This was like launched for a different purpose. So the one which you see here, Linux test VM, is the one which we just launched. So you could see the status is saying initializing. Let's give it a minute. So soon our VM should be up. Or meanwhile, let's try connecting. No, let's see like what happens. So you will have a public IP which is associated with your VM. So again, please note, like if you are doing any sort of restarts to these VMs, you will have this IP address getting changed. You can also reserve this IP address, but if it is for your just lab or practice purpose, I would say you can just leave it as it is, so that you don't have to like go and do that extra steps and all. Okay, so now to make SSH connection, right, there are different tools again available. But for this demo, I'm going to use MOBA extend. So this is the tool from where you can download it. So again, like I will give all these links in the description, so it will be easy for you. You can have this downloaded from here, depending on whichever OS you're running. And I already have it downloaded, so I'll just copy the IP, the public IP, which we will be using to make this connection. Let me copy this. Let's go here. So this is how the screen looks like. So what you can do is go to session, okay, and do SSH. You can put the host, the IP, whatever you just copied here, and go to advanced SSH settings. Here you see an option to use private key. Okay, just enable the checkbox and go and search. So here you would be seeing the key. Okay, as soon as, okay, let's quickly check the VM status. Okay, by the time we were doing that, you could see like 2 by 2 checks passed and the VM is running. So we are good to connect. So all we did is go to sessions, select SSH, put the public IP, and under advanced SSH settings, use private key. Okay, that's all. Okay, now it is asking for a login as what username you are going to log in. So how to know like using what account you are going to connect? So select the instance, okay, and click on connect. Here, it's going to give you the username using which you would be connecting. If you see the connection string, we are using a Ubuntu user. Okay, so this is how the general connection string it's going to be. So let's say you have a key already with you. So this is the key which was created the PEM file. So the general connection string, it's going to be like SSH hyphen I, your PEM key, and username at your machine DNS name. Okay. In our case, since we are using a different client tool, we just need the username. So I'll take Ubuntu and I'll hit enter. So now we are successfully connected to our Linux VM, which is hosted on AWS. So if I do who am I, it's going to give my username. Okay, you can see the IP address which is mentioned here. This is the machine name basically, and so now yeah, we are finally in our EC2 instance. Okay, the IP whatever you see here, this is our private IP. Okay, 172.31.25.143. It's not in a dot IP format, but it's just like split it with a hyphen. Okay, so now we have successfully connected to the VM. So this is how you can connect. So I will also tell you, like, I would recommend you to delete or destroy your VM as soon as you're done with all your work. Since it is for your lab purpose you're doing, it is always recommended to, terminate. So in case of AWS, you're going to terminate it so that everything gets deleted. Okay. Maybe I'll do it for this real quick. Okay, let this go on. Now let's move on to Azure. Okay, so this is how your home page will be looking like, something like this. And like how we had a service named EC2 in Azure, you got something like virtual machines. Okay, so each cloud provider have their own service name. Okay, the way how they call it. So in Azure, it's going to be virtual machine. If you want, like, you can explore other service by clicking on this plate. So you could go and see all our service also, which you would get it here. Okay. Now let's go and create a virtual machine. I'll go and I'll say create virtual machine. It's going to be a similar thing, but just the interface is a little bit different. Okay, and there are few other extra components which would be changing for each cloud provider. So in Azure, like if you want to place any resource, it should be part of some resource group. Okay, all the resources is will be tagged to a specific resource group. So in this case, I'll just create a new resource group saying lab. Let's create it, and inside this again I'm going to have my test VM. So here region I'll leave it with Asia Pacific South India, and other options I'm not going to worry much. So we are going to go with Ubuntu. If you want to see other images, you can definitely come here and take a look at this. Okay, you have Windows, CentOS, RHEL, everything. Now I'll go with this default. Then size. Okay, size also I'm fine with this, like one CPU and 3.5 GB memory. Okay, you have two types of authentication mode. Okay, SSH public key and password. So for this, like since AWS also we saw using an SSH public key, we'll go with the same. Okay, in AWS, like the username which we were using, it's going to be like the default whatever you get for each OS flavor, it's going to be same. For example, if I would have used RHEL OS, so I'll be having a different username called EC2 user. So this that would vary for each flavors of Linux distribution which you are using. So in Azure, you have the option to specify like what username you're going to use. So I'll go with this same Azure user itself. Okay, and let's generate a new key pair. Test VM underscore key. I'm fine with that, and as long as we are having a new key pair, I'm fine. And let's quickly check disk. Since this is going to be our lab, I don't want premium SSD, which would be a little bit expensive. comparatively. So I'll go with the standard HDD. Just make sure you can change this. And networking, I'll leave it as default. So we have to make sure like this public inbound port is enabled for SSH, so that from your client, when you do an SSH, the server should be accessible. Okay. And again, like we're not going to go deep into like network related topics. So delete public IP and nick when VM is deleted. So I would recommend you also to enable this, so that whenever you delete a VM, everything gets deleted. Though I'll show you other option where if you delete a resource group directly, that will take care of everything. Okay, but just you can have this enabled for your lab machines, whatever you are creating for testing purpose. And all these things I will go with the defaults, and let's not worry much about this. And we should be good to create this VM. Let's go and create it. And again, like now we got an option to download this private key. Okay, test VM underscore key is the one which we have created for this Azure VM. Again, like this will take a minute to spin up. You'll have this notification bar here where you can check progress, and this is your deployment details. Let's wait for few more seconds. We should have our VM ready. So it has created the network security group, IP, VNet, network interface, and VM is just getting ready. Let's go and see virtual machine. Let's see if we can see it here. Okay, you can see the status is saying creating. Let's just wait. Maybe while that is getting created, let's see if we can get our public IP. Yeah, we have it here. So what I will do is I'll just copy this. Okay, our VM deployment is done. With the top right, you see this notification, right? Deployment succeeded. Now all we have to do is just copy this IP. Maybe I'll just use Notepad so that if there is any extra space, we could remove it. Okay, let's copy this. And you should be seeing the user whatever we used here, or if not, you do a SSH connect. This is going to give you similar connection string. So this is similar to what we saw with Azure. So SSHI private key path, like for where you have the private key, and Azure user. So this is the user and this is my IP. Okay, let's copy this, and again I'll go to the tool. So since we have deleted the AWS VM, like our session got closed, I'll just close this. It's going to be the same process. Okay, so I'll say new SSH connection, put the IP, and I'll say this key. And username, if you want, you can specify here as well. Okay, let's try that. Azure user. Let's click on OK. That's all. So now we are into our Linux VM, which is hosted on Azure. So you could see here Azure user at test VM. So it's going to be always like the username at the rate the VM. So for example, if I switch this to sudo su, you could see like this is at a root user now. Okay, and you could see now we are in root user context at this test VM. Okay, now I'll close this session as well since we are done with the Azure VM. So now how you can do a quick easy cleanup is, okay, one option is definitely going into this VM and doing a delete. So this will delete all the resources. Like for example, like if you want to delete, like which in general for a lab machine which you will do delete with VM, you want to delete all the resources, and you will acknowledge this and you will go and delete. Other option is like as I told, in Azure, everything is grouped with a resource group. Okay, this is the lab is the resource group which we created. So what I can do is I can go into that resource group. So how you can go is you can just search for resource groups, which will take you here, and I can just do a delete resource group. You just have to apply force delete for selected VM and virtual machine skill set. Everything basically we're going to delete. Here you have to enter the resource group name, which is lab in our case, and hit delete. That's it. This is going to take care of deleting everything. Okay. So that's it on Azure. Now we are into the final part where we are going to spin up a VM on GCP cloud. Okay. In GCP, like how we had resource group in Azure, in GCP we have this projects. Okay, so you have to like everything is tagged within a project. So if you don't have any new project, you can always go and create it. If this is the first time you are logging into the console, you could just create a new project. By default you will have something called my first project, that is the default project which you get, but you can always create a new project, and whatever resource you create under that project, like it will be separately tracked. Once you have the project created, okay, go to this icon, and here you have something called compute engine. Okay, and let's go and say VM instances. So in AWS it is EC2, in Azure it is virtual machine, and in GCP it is VM instances. Okay, just the names are different. Okay, if this is the first time if you are logging in and doing such things, so before even going here, if you are selecting this VM options, you will get a different option where you have to enable the API. So I'll tell you, like in GCP, you have a different API service which where you have to enable for each service. For example, if it is going to be a compute engine, we have to come and enable it. So you will have a different screen. Since I have already enabled this API, I'm not seeing that screen, but this is the screen where you have to come and enable it. If you want to see like what API services are APIs are enabled, you can always come here and check like what is enabled, etc. Okay, these are the different set of APIs which you get, and you can explore this. Now moving on, let's go to the computing engine. I'll go to compute engine and VM instance. Okay, it's actually compute engine. That would be the better way to say instead of VM instance. Now I'll go and create an instance, which is nothing but our virtual machine. So we can say GCP test VM. Location, again, like it depends on like which location you're going to use and all. I think we should have Asia Pacific as well. Maybe I can choose Delhi, and again zone. Maybe for you can leave it, go with the default itself. Okay, sorry, this will not support any uppercase. Okay, just make sure like whatever name you're giving, it is meeting the requirement. So if you click on this hint, it's going to say like what is supported and what is not. So I'll just change that. And since this is going to be our demo, I don't want like this big machine. I can also go for one shared CPU and 1 GB of memory or 2 GB. As soon as you select, if you are in free tier, you don't have to worry much. But since I have exceeded, so it's showing like this is what my the monthly estimate is, so for this specific VM size. Okay, and let's further go down, and under boot disk, this is where you will be setting up like what kind of OS you're going to install on this VM. So I'll go with Ubuntu in this case, and disk type I'll leave it to balance persistent. That's fine. If you still want, like, you can also change it. So now let's move on. Rest all I'll leave it to default. Okay, let's create. So this should take like just few seconds only. Okay, maybe less than a minute. That's what I'm expecting. With GCP, one advantage you have is, like, I mean, I wouldn't say advantage. One easy way is, like, from here itself, you can initiate an SSH connection over browser. So you don't have to, like, worry much about getting some keys, etc. So let's wait for this to finish. Uh, and this is the notification window, okay, where you could see, once the VM is deployed, you will get a pop-up here. Let's wait for that. Let's see if this is deleted. I'll quickly go and check this. Okay, this is done, and this is our AWS instance which says terminated. Okay, perfect. Okay, now our GCP VM is also ready. So all you can do is just do an SSH. In case if you're not getting this browser, it happened to me as well. So mostly you might be having some pop-ups which are blocking up. You could go here and enable the pop-up so that you have this window opened. This should not take much time, so we should be in the server soon. Yeah, that's it. So now we have taken an SSH over a browser, and we are into this box. So if I say who am I, so this is the default user which it picked, which belongs to my user ID, using which I have created the GCP account. And yeah, that's it. So now we are into GCP as well. So in this, like, I hope like this was helpful for you. We have seen how to launch a simple VM for your practice or test purpose, especially a Linux VM, and we have also made a SSH connection into all those VMs. And yeah, that's it, guys. So that's all I had. Thank you so much. Bye.